Tom Izzo. Love talking to Tom. I've talked to him before here on the podcast. Musician, great friend of mine, incredibly talented musician. We decided to talk about, we call this the 5 Unknown Song Swap. So I would present 5 songs to Tom that I didn't think he knew, made sure he didn't know, and he would do the same to me. We would go split off, listen to them, and then come back. So the songs that Tom had me listen to were Dead Billie Jean by Blitzen Trapper, Up All Night by Aaron Lee Tezjan, Surf's Up, The Beach Boys, Here Comes the River by Patrick Watson, and Where Were You by Jeff Beck. So I went and listened to them, and I had Tom listen to Original of the Species by U2, Girl You Want, Devo, Back to the Way I Was by Emily Bell, Rebel Without a Pause, Public Enemy, and I Don't Know by the Beastie Boys. We had a great conversation. We went through all 10 songs, weaving in and out. We gave our opinions of them, and it was a great conversation. I know you're going to enjoy it. I expect to do a lot more of this. Let me know if you like it, and thanks so much for listening. Hi, I'm Joey Pinz. People ask me, how did I lose 130 pounds? The quick answer is always discipline. I started my business, wasn't paying attention to my health, was eating too much, drinking too much sweets. My daughter was born. Next thing I know, I'm pre-diabetic, I have hypertension. I knew something had to change. Discipline. I, like many of you, have faced many challenges in your career, in your family, in your life, in your faith. How did you attack them? How did you approach them? How did you solve them, hopefully? It all had to have some degree of discipline. I'm also asked, how did you found and start a tech business that lasted over 25 years? Discipline. I was committed to it, enjoyed technology, didn't enjoy some aspects of it, but knew it was necessary. Discipline. Our podcast mission, how do we use discipline to better ourselves and society? Join me, please, as I talk to interesting people and discuss how they use discipline in their family, in their passion, in their careers, and how it helped them. Our podcast vision, growth through learning from others. Joey Pinz Discipline Conversations. It'll be light and serious. Join us, please. Thank you for consideration. Excited to talk to you, Tom.
Oh, me too, my friend.
Such a great pleasure. When we were younger, we used to find out about music by the radio, by our friends, by maybe something we watched. But now it's all available all the time. It's so hard to find it. Is this fair for musicians?
I don't know. I don't know if fair is the language that I would use. I'll tell you, it's harder. It really is harder because there's so much music released on a day-to-day basis that honestly, how are you gonna get any? But listen, even in the old days, I mean, not nearly as much, but still you're gonna, most people are gonna just kind of get washed out to sea, it's
Right.
just the nature of it, but now it's like it's tricky. I mean, as far as just releasing music digitally and being heard, you can't that just doesn't work on its own at all anymore. Do you know what I mean? There might have been a time when it did because it was novel, but you really have to have some sort of a fan base or play live and then direct people to your release or whatever, So
Yeah, it's very true. Like I just saw Jack Black perform on Silent Live. New album. Now I'm sorry, Jack Black. Jack White.
Yeah.
Not the
I know what you're
actor.
talking about.
Not the actor, the musician.
Yeah.
Now he's a superstar. He's been around for a long time. He's got a huge fan base. It's his new album. Song was his similar kind of style. Sounded great. I went right over to my subscriber and I started listening to some of the music. So, I mean, I got exposed to him because he was on a national television show. I watch the show often, and that's how I get exposed. But now it's so different. And it's, when you used to want to listen to a musician, I say, hey, my buddy, you have that album. I feel like listening to Leonard Skinner, or I feel like listening to In Excess. You have the disc and let me borrow it. That was the kind of rote, but now you could just get anything anywhere. It's just different. I don't know if it's better or worse, just different.
Well, different, but I will say the one thing I will say about that is the fact that you had to physically buy the thing or
Mm,
somebody had to physically make you a cassette, there was like real some effort involved in getting that music, or you had to record it off the radio. Remember that? There was that.
right.
But that whatever effort that was added value to the music because you knew, you're sitting there waiting for an hour for Van Halen to come on because they said, "Oh, at the top of the
Right.
hour, Van Halen's going to come on." So you're
Right.
sitting there like this with the record button. That had some value to it because you wanted it bad enough to do that. So
I
listen,
mean,
if
it's true.
anything's readily, easily available, it loses
Yeah.
value as a result. You could probably point to anything.
I'm in the process of writing a book now, and my publisher said to me,
Really?
yeah, somebody said, when you buy a book, there's when you buy it, there's 57% chance that you'll read it. If somebody gives you a book, there's 5% chance you'll read it.
That's it. That is exactly it.
Yeah. Very, very interesting. So we decided to get back together again. I always love talking to you, and we
If I may,
segue.
well, no, just to put a cap on that, I'm pretty sure that there are people in my family, immediate family, who have not even heard my EP.
Is that
So,
right?
so there
That's
in
funny.
terms of
That's so
and I
funny.
don't whatever, that's not
That's
a
so
judgment,
funny.
it's just
Yeah.
simply an objective fact. It's
That's
like,
funny.
there's
Yeah.
just
Yeah.
no re I don't know, whatever. So at any rate, I digress. Go on.
So we challenged ourselves to present 5 songs to each other that we knew the other didn't know, to kind of, just to see what it's like. And we listened to them, and we're going to talk now. You selected Dead Billie Jean by Blitzen Trapper, Up All Night, Aaron Lee, Tajan, Surfs Up, the Beach Boys, Here Comes the River, Patrick Watson, Where Were You by Jeff Beck. I selected for you to listen to Original of the Species by U2, Girl You Want, Devo, Back to the Way I Was by Emily Bell, Rebel Without a Pause, Public Enemy, and I Don't Know, the Beastie Boys. So I'd like to start, if you don't mind, with Dead Billie Jean. When I first heard the title, I was thinking it's related to Michael Jackson and Billie Jean. There's going to be some kind of, she's not mine, or what happened to her when she after she was born. Because the name just is so cemented. But
Yeah.
obviously, it's quite a popular name in the South, and being from the North, I wasn't that familiar. But I really love the song. So this band's out of Portland, Oregon. The song was dropped in September of 20. You're a big fan of this band.
I don't know if I'm a big fan. I mean, what I have heard, I've heard a couple albums, listened to a couple albums, and generally speaking, I do really admire the songwriting and stuff.
Mm.
So, is it on my constant playlist? No, but I really think they're really good, obviously enough to put on here. But like that tune in particular, and I think a lot of their music's like this, but like the lyrics are, there's somewhat a magical realism to the lyrics in a way. You know what I mean? They're kind of fantastical a little bit, even though it's, I reread them and they're pretty, easy to follow and cemented. But that and just the sound of the recording too, the production is
Mm.
dry and gritty sounding with the double vocal and stuff. I really dig that type of sound. So um, yeah, that particular tune really strikes me. But I like that. I think it's that like I said, I listened to a couple of things. That's the other thing about listening to stuff on Apple Music or whatever. It's like all the albums blend together. I don't even know what
Do
album it's from,
they do?
but yeah, like within the group of songs that struck me, that was certainly one of them. Yeah,
Yeah, we're in a world of singles, Tom. Everything's a single.
well, that's
Yeah,
true too. But
yeah,
I just don't. I don't won't accept that. So I'll listen to
right.
the whole album and because I'm sure a band like that, that's what they would want you to do anyways.
The terribly worded phrase that they group, the second half of Abbey Road there, when they group all those songs together, they call it the beat, they call it, I don't know, the melody or medley or something. I can't listen to any of those songs by themselves. I have to kind of all listen to them
Yeah.
together. That's an example I said. So the song is about someone who dies of an overdose, and kind of leaves a quarter in a shot glass, and it goes on. One of his lyrics, which are really cool. I was 6 feet under playing bones with Brian Jones and Jim. It
Right.
was just wonderful.
Right? It's a great line. And that's what I mean about the sort of, fantastical is not a great way to describe it, but just, sort of the freedom of the way he writes lyrics, they're very illustrative and really it says everything it needs to say, but yet
Right.
it's pretty descriptive in almost a surreal way, so that's cool, I think, for me.
Sitting at a table with Brian Jones and Jim Morrison having a drink, to me, it meant Morrison, by the way. I don't know what others, but
That's what I thought too. Yeah.
yeah, I don't, what would that be like? My goodness, just the
No.
sensibilities of those gentlemen.
Yeah.
That would be really something. And then later on, again, he weaves in and out. It's really great song. Honest Abe, he cracked the well. He said, "I was smoking dope with with Lincoln in a Chrysler on the hill." So I'm starting to think, well, by Chrysler, does he mean Lee Iacocca, the creator of Chrysler, or is just does it mean a physical Chrysler automobile?
My
And then
guess is he means the car. Yeah.
the car, sure. Honest Abe, it cracked the window just to scotch to breathe. Just great vision there. It's just a I really enjoyed this song.
Oh, cool. I'm glad you liked it. Yeah.
Yeah, really good kind of first, by the way, all your songs, is there a general kind of feeling of why you selected them?
So, not here was my criteria. I decided because I need something, some sort of constraint. So really, it was just stuff that, other than the Jeff Beck stuff, that I had listened to or spent some time with in like the past year or so. So that was it, because
Mm,
as you had first mentioned, it was kind of a free form discussion. So I'm like, well, this will be my constraint. It's just stuff that had kind of been percolating in my mind a little bit for the past year, you know. So that's it. But what was the connection that you found?
musicianship.
Yeah, well, I mean, I think that's probably,
Yeah,
just inherently in there for me.
right.
Not that I consciously seek it out or anything, but I think it's just there for there's certain things that I probably just automatically lean toward or whatever, but
Sure, sure, because your
so
appreciation.
yeah, and just yeah, I guess, I don't know. But like when you say musicianship, like what do you hear? Like what do you mean by that? And what are
Like
you latching on to?
Well, I mean, if I go right to Public Enemy, the song I had you listen to, there's not a musicianship there. It's very differently crafted. It's digital and it's albums and it's heavy lyrics and it's angry. Although you could certainly have that in musicianship, can't you?
Well, yeah. So it's an interesting point that you make, but for sure you can have those things. And the other thing too is Chuck D played the drums on that track.
Did he really?
Yeah, because did a little research because I was wondering what was, where they got certain samples from or whatever. And it turns out that I think they had a loop that they weren't satisfied with, so he wound up playing he was the best drummer in the group. So,
Huh.
I mean, that drum track sounds fine to me. If that's who it is, you know what I mean? It sounds great. So, and yes, I would argue that there is definitely musicianship in the delivery of the lyric and stuff. That was one of the things that I was going to talk about with that tune because, well,
Let's go into it. Let's go into it. Go ahead.
oh, okay. I mean, I think the thing about a song like that is you've got. I think what you're thinking about is when what you're describing is limited elements, musical elements, right? So you're not
Mm,
dealing with melody, you're not dealing
mm,
with harmony because there's no chords to back
right.
anything up. So what you're dealing with is
Huh.
is rhythm and motive. Like so now I'm going to start to sound like a nerd. Sorry, can't help.
No apologies. Rhythm and motive. That's very interesting.
So, and when I say motive, it's that, that high shrill thing.
Yeah, the air horn kind of.
Well, yeah, it's actually an alto sax sample. And,
Really?
yeah, that's just on a 3-second loop, I guess, apparently. And, so the deal with that to me is, I found that, both aggravating and compelling, which
Mm.
and then when I hear that, I go, "There's something there then," because a lot of music that I wind up loving or really digging into is aggravating and compelling, oddly enough, So
Wow.
the thing about that, and then I started thinking about it and started really getting nerdy, and really what that alto sax loop is, it's what's called an ostinato. In classical music, it's a musical phrase that repeats incessantly. It just repeats, 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 and repeats.
Wow.
And so that is what you have is an ostinato. And then, so then I'm thinking, okay, this repeated thing, why? And then I read the lyrics. I'm like, oh, because it's an illustration of defiance. That
Yes.
ostinato, that repeat, that thing that's aggravating. It's like, no, I'm not going anywhere. It's brilliant, actually. So, is that musicianship? I don't know, man. I would say that's something in the realm of art and musicianship. And then, you get into the delivery of the rap, which, you don't have a traditional chorus or a verse setup. So now you've got to maintain interest somehow, right? So he does it by varying the phrase lengths of the lyric and in providing, all sorts of internal rhyme and all things like that. So you're constantly off balance. And again, it compels you to have to listen to it more because you want to kind of be able to latch onto something lyrically because that's where the beef is essentially. So sorry, that's my tangent, but it was, so it was interesting. And I mean that in a deep sense, I mean, it's when you start taking apart something that's seemingly simple, it usually isn't.
Isn't yeah. When I say musicianship, I guess I start to think that when you hear a song like that, you think to yourself, "Oh, this is how they're doing it. This is how they're playing it. This is how." But with Rebel Without a Pause, you're still doing the same thing. It's amazing to me. It's really not that different.
What do you mean by that exactly? I'm not.
The first song I said the commonality between your songs, I said musicianship because I kind of get the feeling that you're able to take them apart and really understand the elements and you could probably replicate them.
Right.
Whereas this, it's different instruments, different sounds, but you're still doing the same thing. You're still diagnosing it the way you would any other song. It's fascinating.
Oh, so yeah, I mean, listen, so all music has, you know, well, some of the same the elements are the same, whether something is missing or not. Do you know what I mean? So if
Mm,
it's music, it's gonna have rhythm, it's gonna have harmony, melody, texture. I'm sure there's other things I'm leaving out, but my point is, in a song, might not have all of those things, or it might be really heavy on some of those things and light on other things. So my point being is that I could still analyze it, from the perspective of just the holistically music and just go, okay,
wow.
but this is the thing that they're focusing on. And he's not concerned about harmony or
Right.
melody. That's not
Right.
his. He doesn't need it or want it, which I could totally understand why. It's just not needed in that context, but there is rhythm and there is phrasing and there is texture and timbre and things like musical motives and stuff, so you could still analyze it.
Had you heard the song before?
I'm sure I have. I will be honest and say that I'm sure that I never deeply listened to it as much as I did now. Obviously, I knew who Public Enemy was and heard and saw the videos and stuff way back in the day. But I was never, rap was never really my thing. Not
Right.
that I had anything. I mean, I'm sure when I was younger, I wasn't metal, so you know what I mean. That was probably the issue. But, I don't have any problem with it at all, it's just not my world, you know what I mean? In terms of, like, what I usually listen for or whatever,
Yeah.
but I can fully appreciate it, and
Yeah.
and admire it.
So that came out in 1988. That's their second album. It takes a nation a million to hold us back. And when I got the first, by the way, I got into rap the way every, you
That's what I
know,
was gonna ask you. Yeah.
yeah. Well, I got into it for the best reasons possible because very attractive girls were listening to it.
Oh,
So,
alright,
so
yeah.
that was, the the theme behind every
That is
rock
not what I
musician.
thought you were gonna say,
Yeah,
actually.
they got me into it and then I was hooked. And then wow, this is good. I'm going to listen to it more. But they're the ones who introduced like there was hundreds. A
Right,
couple, by the
right.
way, got
That's
me
all it
into
takes.
it. Yeah, and then my friends did. But when that song came out specifically, that air horn that you said it was aggravating and compelling, is lovely. Uh, that has been replicated so many times since that song. Janet
Yes.
Jackson, Cypress Hill,
Yeah.
NWA, that little, that
And
little, so many.
Jump Around, right?
Yes, yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, Jump Around. I can't think of the Irish band there.
Yes. Can't remember the
Yes,
name.
yeah, absolutely. I mean, that song started it all, and it was just a game changer. It was just like
Yeah.
everything, before that was still very good. And Chuck D talks about being on tour with, with bands. I'm not sure, Eric B and Rakim and LL Cool J, and a couple of, and their first album kind of wasn't as passionate, and it kind of motivated them to do that. But I mean, it's got speeches from Jesse Jackson in the front, from Malcolm X in it as well. I mean, just the I remember the just some of the phrases, and of course, Rebel Without a Pause, James Dean, Rebel Without a Cause. It was just, when I made that first kind of leap there, but just the anger, like you say, there is no chorus, there is no kind of bridge or rhythm. He just keeps on going and bellowing all this out.
Yeah.
It's wonderful.
Yeah, it's so what I wanted to ask you was when and I assume that you had first heard it when you were younger, did you get any from the lyric, did it make any significance in terms of the social justice issues and things like that, or was it just about the music and you really didn't care about what they were saying necessarily?
No, there was a connection because my cousins are live in the Bronx and in Queens. I'd go
Okay.
there a lot. I used to hang around with a lot of, them listening to rap and hip hop. And I used to work in New Haven at a hospital. So so that I made that kind of connection. And I would kind of feel the anger as well. But in college, my friends just simply could not believe that I could love the Beatles and the Public Enemy at the
Yeah.
same time.
Yeah.
They just simply couldn't believe it. And I said, why? Just one, they're just I don't really, they're just different. So what, but why did you think I got into rap?
No idea.
Uh,
I assumed it was just that, like, I know it was the zeitgeist at the time when all that stuff was starting to, bubble up, and a lot of kids got into it. You know what I mean? I remember. I just didn't know, having not gotten into it at that age, with everybody else. I just didn't know if like people were really latching onto the message of the music as well. You know what I mean? Or if it was just the sound or whatever. You know what I mean? Because what he's saying is, is pretty heavy.
yes, yes,
Um,
yeah,
and,
and they were
and
very
controversial. Yeah,
very
yeah,
controversial. Yeah,
yeah.
I mean, they were very anti-drugs. They were very anti-gang, and Chuck D would have interviews like, "I know people that are selling drugs still listen to my music. What can I do about it?"
Right.
I did actually meet him once, by the way. He was touring at my girlfriend at the time's college. It was wonderful. I saw him speak, but so, and then he, like, when he
Well, was
starts
he? Hold
yelling.
on, I have to know. Was he cool or what? Was
Very
he
cool. Very
really? Huh?
cool. Very gentlemanly.
Oh,
How you
awesome.
doing? Yeah, really nice. And God, I'd love to talk to him again. Then he starts yelling at the radio. Radio suckers never play me on the mix. They just okay me. Now known and grown. When they're clocking my zone, it's known snaking and taking everything that a brother owns. So he's like, these black radio stations aren't playing my stuff. They're just, playing the stuff that gets them money. Why aren't they playing my stuff that's new? So he's like calling people out. When do we hear that in music so kind of blatantly? It's wonderful.
Yeah, yeah. As far as like calling out the industry that you're, existing in
Right.
or trying to exist in, yeah. Yeah, no, that's true. For sure. I'm trying to think of other examples that might do that, and I'm sure they're out there, but I just
Absolutely.
can't think of anything offhand.
Well, I mean, Neil Young,
Oh
called
yeah.
out Southern man. Well, that was more against that, but
That's a cultural thing. Well, what about
cultural.
what was it? Not this, but this songs for you. Was it this songs for you? That tune that he wrote?
Oh yeah.
You know what I'm talking about? It was
Yes,
in the
yes.
80s,
Right, in the 80s,
but it was an
yeah.
anti-commercial, but it was
It was
more just
anti-commercial.
about, yeah, anti-commercial, yeah.
Well, the record company didn't want him to make, or he still needed a couple more albums, so he just made a couple that, I don't know if Neil Young's the exact right model, but Prince certainly was upset with his record
Yeah,
company. And we have plenty of, artists kind of fighting back against, their bosses, right? I guess.
right, right.
Um, I thought I knew every Beach Boys song. Damn it, Tom. I thought I really got into the Beach Boys. I really did. And Brian Wilson. And so this
Oh,
song, Surfs Up, it was made in 66 with Van Dyke Parks. And 66 is when they released Pet Sounds. So why wasn't Surfs Up on Pet Sounds? Do you know?
see, this is the thing that's crazy about music from that era. Those guys were working so fast.
Yeah.
And so Good Vibrations was written around that same time as well.
Right, right, right.
What was going on was, I think I don't I'm gonna mess this up a little bit, but, Pet Sounds, they were working on that, but he was also, like, just experimenting with, like, he had these ideas for, Surf's Up was gonna be this suite, which it is essentially, but it was sorta gonna be symphonic in scope in his mind, you know what I mean?
Mm,
And I think Good Vibrations fell under that same rubric or whatever, and, I think maybe he might have had the idea that it was gonna be on its own album at that point too, which was then gonna be Smile, which got shelved,
right.
I think that was the deal. I'm not entirely positive, or it was just something that he had in his mind. They went into the studio and did it, and then, whatever. But regardless, yeah, I mean, it's the same thing with the Beatles, like, so many things you're like, "Hold on, I thought that was written that" it turns out, like, it was written 4 years earlier, they just hadn't
Right.
gotten around you know what I mean? All this crazy stuff. It's amazing how productive all those guys were back then. It's amazing.
I hear these things like Prince still has thousands of
Oh,
songs
yeah.
he's never released. That must be just something. So yeah, Smile never that was 67 after, and I know there was disruption there. The band didn't want to release it, and he eventually did release it by himself,
Yeah.
maybe 10 years ago. I loved it, by the way, the
Yeah, it
way
was
everything
great.
came together. I thought everything was wonderful. But this Van Dyke Parks, I'm not familiar. Did he do a lot of we're talking about Brian Wilson, of course. Did he do a lot of collaboration with him? Do you know?
So he wrote, I think, the first drafts of Good Vibrations, the lyrics.
Ah.
But here's the deal with Van Dyke Parks, he's kind of a genius in his own right. He's a brilliant arranger, has done tons of arrangements for people up until now.
Hmm.
He's still around and still active. He's, like, in his early 80s, I think, or something like that, but, brilliant guy, put out his own solo albums,
Did he?
that are very eclectic and almost avant-garde in a way, just seemingly an encyclopedic knowledge of music. He just knows a lot of stuff, and you can hear it in the music. So yeah, I mean, he's his own thing, I guess, is my point. But yeah, they went through a period where they were collaborating quite a bit, I think, and I think. Well, it's actually the smile. Well, here I am. It's the Smile album.
Yeah.
So, like, those lyrics, if I'm not mistaken, I think they're all, other than the rewrite of Good Vibrations, they're all Van Dyke Parks.
Wow.
So, you know, and he might have had something to do with some of the music, I don't know, but
It's amazing, Wilson there, and I mean, some of these lyrics, Tom. I mean,
yeah, the lyrics are pretty
I,
crazy.
they're culminating ruins, domino,
Yeah.
canvas, the town, and the brush, the backdrop. Are you sleeping? I mean, it's just these kind of waves of, and the music. It's just kind of there's like xylophones back there, and then it kind of breaks out at the end into this harmony of child. It's just so this was released on the Surfs Up album in '71. So they waited 5 years to
Yeah.
release this, and it's the title of the album, but it's buried eighth or ninth. By the way, those are listening, an album is a collection of songs that artists. That's a joke, but where the songs were placed on the album were very important. I think of the Cars, right? Like
Yeah.
they'd put all the ones they want you to hear were first, and what they put on the first side of the second first song on the second side was important as well. They wanted you to hear the songs in a particular order, and
Yeah.
Surfs Up is low. It's towards the bottom.
It's
It's
probably not
fascinating.
in it's probably not ranked in terms of importance, but more in terms of, like, what where it would be most effectively placed in
Mm,
terms of mood,
mm,
in the whole collection is what I would think.
ah,
But that song
yeah.
to me is, I mean, it's just I don't even know if I could say it's Brian Wilson at his most genius, because honestly, the guy If you know, it's so hard to put into words. As a musician,
Right.
knowing what is going on in that music and what like the level of inspiration to get to something like that, it's sort of mind blowing. And I
Wow.
don't usually have physical reactions a lot to music sometimes, but like there's a song that like I'll get chills every time,
Wow.
and it's just incredible. I mean, it's beautiful. You know, that columnated ruins line, how it
Yes.
ascends into this beautiful high falsetto thing. And I mean, it's incredible. It's like church music, honestly.
And that's him singing. That's Brian singing, right?
That might be Carl singing.
Oh, it's Carl.
Brian could sing that in there's demos of that, and he's singing it. It's gorgeous. But that might be Carl, I think,
Wow.
because
Because
Carl did like God Only Knows, that's him on lead.
that's him. Because Mike Love wouldn't do any of that kind of
He
falsetto
couldn't.
stuff.
No, he couldn't
Yeah.
do any of that stuff. No, he was different.
Yeah, incredible, incredible band, and we're so
Yeah.
fortunate that they were there. Oh man, what'd you think of "Original of the Species" by U2? Have you heard the song before?
I think I may have heard it. It's funny. I have mixed feelings about that song, I would
Hmm.
say. Um, in terms of like songcraft or whatever, I mean, they're great. I mean, U2 is a great band. They write great songs. You know what I mean? And that song is technically, I mean, does all the things right. It just does. You know what I mean? It does. It's a well
Yeah.
crafted tune, cool key change from the A section to the B section. It's outwardly everything is great, and like anything anyone could hope to write a song. You know what I mean? Like any band would like be like, yeah, sure, I would love to write that tune. Oddly enough, it's sort of, I don't wouldn't say it leaves me cold, but it leaves me. I'm just kind of like, yeah, it's okay.
Interesting.
I'm not really that affected by it, and it's almost like, I don't wanna say it's them being safe, because that's not fair and it's not right, really, but it's almost them not really. I don't know, it's just it sounds incredibly competent, which also sounds like condescending, and that's not what I mean.
Patronizing. Yeah.
Yeah, patronizing, that's not what I mean. I'm not finding the right words because they're great, you know what I mean? But it's almost like them being great with they're not even it's like a good tune that they could probably just throw together in a way, almost. And I'm sure it means something. I know it's written about his daughter and stuff,
Yeah.
so I'm sure it means something more. I'm just giving the vibe that I have, and I'm sure I'm wrong, but that's
Yeah.
just
It's
my objective, I mean, yeah, subjective opinion, yeah.
incredibly biased opinion I have, of course, because I've seen them live more than any other band. They're having a residency in Las
Yeah, I
Vegas. Did you hear
know.
about this? They're
Yeah,
going to
with
like
your
redo
drummer.
the. Larry's not going.
Nope.
Why? Really? I
I
didn't.
think he had some sort of a surgery
Oh,
or something, and he's sitting it out. Yeah.
wow! I didn't hear that. But they're like redoing or something with Octoon Baby. They're reimagining some of the songs or something. But
Oh, is that the
yeah,
deal?
something like that. But it'll be in Las Vegas in the fall. But um, yeah, it's about Edge's daughter when she was born, and there was some complications there. But there's one particular.
Is that the deal? I didn't realize that that was the
Yeah,
deal. Yeah. See, that's what I mean. It's, if I may interject, I mean, that's where, but here's the thing that's weird, right? If
you
you
shouldn't
don't
need
know that,
context.
you should
Exactly.
need context.
You shouldn't need
Exactly.
context. Just listen to
Exactly.
it or watch it as the RC. Again, I'm biased because I have this context. And um, there's a line in there when I saw them once in Boston. The line is, "Some things you shouldn't get too good at, like smiling, crying, and celebrity. Some people got way too much confidence, baby." So when Bono's singing this song, that exact line, he's up on stage pointing to himself.
Oh, yeah.
Look, it's giving me chills, Tom.
Yeah.
He's
Yeah.
like
Yeah.
pointing to himself. Some things
Yeah.
you shouldn't get too good at, like smiling, crying, and celebrity. Some people just got way too much confidence, baby. And so then it kind of goes back, I'll give you everything you want except for the thing
What
you
thing you want,
want.
which is the
Yeah.
line that stood out to me. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah. You're the first one of your kind. Yeah. And it
Yeah.
kind of builds again. Again. So I've seen it live 3 or 4 times. I know
See,
the context, and so
that's
that's
what I
why I
would
built
say.
all of.
I was gonna
Yeah.
say, you make a good point though, because honestly, a song like that, and especially with them, there's something I have not seen them live. My wife
Oh,
saw
wow.
the Achtung Baby tour
Yeah.
live, and she
So
said
did
it
I.
was like,
Yeah.
almost like a religious experience, and I've heard that time and time again. That and I've seen videos of them live, and it's true. There is something really magnetic about what they do live, and I could hear that song going over big, and
Right.
actually, that would probably change my opinion,
Yeah.
of the song. So I could totally see that for sure.
It's kinda like when you go to a museum and you look at a painting and you're like, "Okay," and then somebody comes over and says, "Well, this is about this and this
It's
happened then,"
true.
and then all of a sudden, "Oh, well, now," and,
Or
I
Or the idea of you see a picture of a painting, and it's one
Ah.
thing, and then you see the painting that's happened to me
Mm,
before, and then you see that
mm.
painting in person, and you're like, "Oh, alright, now I get it."
Right.
You know?
I guess you could say that. You heard it live versus you heard the studio, and it's a little different. That's very interesting.
Yeah.
Oh, look how wonderful art is, Tom. Look,
Yeah, it's weird, the means of, experiencing it matter,
it
you
really
know?
does. It
It's
really,
like
really does.
example for the visual art thing, okay? 2 examples that come into my mind. There's a painting in the Yale Art Gallery, a Van Gogh of the pool table in the pool hall. I don't know if
Huh.
you've seen it before or not, but anyway, I've seen pictures of it a gazillion times. Then you go see it at the gallery, and the thing is literally pulsating in front of your face. You're
Is
like,
it
"That
really?
does not come through in the picture." You know what I mean? And another thing was that I saw a Francis Bacon, one of the papal portraits. I don't know if you know his stuff, but,
No.
you would if you saw it probably. But
So
anyway, you see the pictures of it, and you're like, "Oh, yeah," avant-garde abstract, kinda mid-century, so, okay, it's cool. I'm reducing it greatly. But then I saw it at a gallery, and it just hits you right in the face and knocks you back. And so I firmly believe in those means of experiencing are hugely important. They are, you know? So I could see that with that tune 100%.
yeah. If just to veer off a second, if you think about, I know there's an endless debate and there's lists everywhere, but if one of your categories for the best band, of all time or in the last 100 years, let's say rock and roll, and one of the criteria is original band members, then U2's got to be there, right? Because it's just been the four of them. Of course, what you're telling me now in the fall, Larry's not going to be there, but because somebody made this point, by the way, that Paul McCartney and Ringo Starr were going to do some studio work with the Rolling Stones.
I
If you
heard
think
that,
about
yeah.
Then you think about it, the Rolling Stones don't have their original bassist and drummer.
Yeah.
You meld the Beatles and the Rolling Stones.
I can't I read that literally. It's so funny that you say that because I literally read that headline yesterday,
Wow.
and I had the browser open. I'm like, "I gotta read that," and then I got caught into something else, and I didn't get a chance to read it, but literally that's what I was saying. I was like, "Oh my god, how bizarre." So, the 2 camps of either you're a Stones fan or a Beatles fan, that's out the window now, I
I
guess, at
know,
this
I
point,
know.
but it's gonna be if they do it, it'll be really interesting.
It'd be very interesting. Yeah, I haven't seen the Stones in a while. I know they're still touring. Everybody says they're great, but I have you?
No, I've never seen them live,
I don't
actually.
think I have either. Yeah, I don't think I have either. Now, "Up All Night" by Aaron Lee Tezjan there,
Has been, yeah, I think is how you say it.
Tazjen,
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah.
Tom, as soon as the first 5 seconds, I said, "This sounds like the Traveling Wilburys."
Yeah, or ELO or
Or
yeah, and
ELO,
well,
yeah.
it's Jeff Lynne, you know what I mean?
Oh, Jeff Lynne produced it?
Yeah, well, no, but I'm saying, like, Jeff Lynne produced, ELO, obviously,
Yes,
and the
yes,
Traveling Wilburys, that's his sound. So they
yes.
were definitely, mimicking that sound, for sure. Yeah.
Ah. So, did Jeff Lynne had something to do with this artist?
No, he didn't have anything to do with
I
it, but
see,
I'm
I see.
saying, like, they chose that as their means of production to say,
I
"Okay,
see.
this is what the model's gonna be," is that kind of big Jeff Lynne sound,
Yeah, a
Um,
Nashville Out of Artists. It was dropped in February of 21. How did you find this artist and this song?
you know what? I honestly don't remember,
Huh,
but I did, and then the whole album is really good. I mean,
really?
yeah, he's a really good songwriter and a really good guitar player too. And then I heard some of the other albums too, which are they're really good as well. But this one seems to be sort of a what's the word I'm looking for? A thoroughly realized vision production wise of what he was going for something sound wise on this album. So it's kind of an interesting thing of like this, you know, he's definitely got these country roots sound, but with
Mm,
this sort of polished, surface. It's kind of interesting, But the thing I like about that tune is, well, it's catchy for sure. I mean, it's a great pop tune, but the
yes,
lyrics are so ambiguous and,
they are.
and yin and yang that I get a kick out of it because they're kind of sardonic, really. In this nice poppy framework, I always get caught by that. I
Do
think
you really?
yeah, I just think it's funny. It reminds me of, because like I think some of the first ones to do it, I mean, off the top of my head is the Beatles, like Lennon.
Yeah.
And actually, that tune is kind of a distillation of like McCartney's point of view and Lennon's point of view. If you really want to get nerdy, Lennon with
Ah,
the sardonic negative sort of thing, and McCartney with the positive thing. It's
absolutely.
right there in that tune. So
Saved up all my money and blew all my money.
yeah,
Broke up with my boyfriend to go out with my girlfriend.
yeah.
It's just kind of, it's so nice. By the way, another Nashville artist that you got myself and our good mutual friend George into a while ago from Nashville was Judson
Oh
Spence.
my God, yeah.
That was, I don't know, kind of similar, kind of, still roots but still poppy, but the
Yeah,
incredible
yeah,
album.
that was yeah, that I wore that album out. Oh my
Yeah,
god, back in the day. That
me
was like that
too.
was 88, 89, I think. Ooh, we went to that concert together, I don't know if you
We
remember.
did. Britney
Yeah,
Spears? No, who he
I
opened for
don't
somebody.
know. He did open for somebody, and I have no idea who he opened for because all I went was for that. No,
I think
this
it
is
was
way before Britney Spears, way before.
it
This
was at
decade.
that the outside in New Britain, that
Yeah,
park,
yeah.
right?
Yeah, yeah, what was it? Not
Not the
Townhouse.
Meadows. Yeah, I forget, but it was. I thought it was for a pop star. I don't remember, but we actually kind of walked up and shook his hand afterwards
Yeah.
on the side there. Yeah, but this I really enjoy this. So that this album was released a couple years ago. Do you continue to listen to his music? This Aaron Lee
I
Tajam?
go through, my thing is like I kind of soak it up, soak it in, and then
Mm,
and then I don't have anything on regular
that's right.
rotation
You
anymore.
don't.
Probably because I have the attention span of a gnat at this point. But I did thoroughly, digest that album, and then when it was thoroughly digested, I just, I don't,
You remember
but
that?
once in a while I'll put it on or whatever.
So talk about musicianships. I just I wish I was a fly on the wall when you heard "Girl You Want" from Devo. I mean, what's going on? What was that like, Tom?
You know what? So here's my thoughts on Devo, for whatever they're worth. Again, when they first came out, could not relate, because they didn't have long hair and spandex.
Right,
I mean, I just, I was totally into metal, and if it wasn't
right,
like classic, well, which it wasn't even classic rock back
right,
then, but if it wasn't like, rock, this, Zeppelin, Aerosmith, or Judas Priest or something, I didn't want to know it. So I just could not relate. But even back then, as I think back, I'm like, you hear Whip It and it's like,
right.
just in your head and you're probably annoyed, but it's like, there's a reason it's in your head. It's freaking catchy, man, and
Yes,
really well put together. So at any rate, then I listen to this tune and I'm like, this is just like a great pop song. I like a
yeah.
really well crafted tune. I mean, I don't know why that's a surprise to me. I mean, they're a legendary band, but whatever. Again, so no, I just think like I think it's great. I love the guitar sound and
Mm,
and I love the guitar playing actually on it. So as far as musicianship, you know what I mean? Like, yeah,
right.
it hits all the buttons for me.
Had you heard it before?
Oh yeah, I've heard it before. Again,
Yeah, yeah.
like never really listened to it that deeply, you know what I mean? But sure, of course, I've probably heard it a million times.
I mean, I just there's great, photographs from Leibowitz there, right from CBGBs. I mean, this is a band out of Ohio, right, out of Akron, Ohio, comes to New York City in 1973, and you know, just the whole. I don't know if you've seen interviews with these guys, but they're hard to relate. They're just really artsy, and so Devo
Smart
is
though, like yeah, like
very
really
smart,
smart guys.
bookish.
Yeah,
Yeah, yeah,
yeah,
yeah. Devolution, like we are decreasing. We are
Yeah,
devolving as a society, and that's
right.
kind of their theme. And yeah, just very, very odd, but still, that song starts. I can't stop it.
Oh, for sure. That's what I mean. You know, it's undeniable. It's a great tune, and
Yeah,
they have a bunch of songs like that,
that's right.
you
And I
know?
heard when the Rolling Stones heard them do Satisfaction, they were disappointed with it. Maybe I misheard that. Did you
Oh,
hear
I could
that?
believe that. I could believe that
Yeah,
because it was totally, it was almost like Satisfaction put through a Cuisinart, you know what I mean? It's in
right.
a very abstracted version, but
Yeah,
honestly, and I remember hearing it back then and going like,
yeah.
"What the hell is this?" You know what I mean? Because again, I just had no frame of reference. Now
Right.
that I'm older and I've kind of been exposed to stuff, I see where they were coming from, a little bit, and and the sort of artsy world that they were, coming from. But yeah, I mean, like now hearing it now, I'm like, that's brilliant.
It is.
That's brilliant
It
to
is.
be able to that they did that. It's crazy. I would
Yeah,
never
when
have thought of that.
are cover songs an honor? I mean, to me, they always seem like an honor to me. They're like, something that they love. They're reproducing it in their own way.
Oh, yeah,
Perhaps other bands don't think that way. I don't know.
no, I think that the artist who's doing the cover version must have a reverence for the song. Now,
Right.
here's the thing, like, if you're the songwriter and you think they completely missed the mark as far as what the core, point of the song is, I could see how they might not appreciate it, you know what I mean, or whatever. I'm
Right.
talking about the Stones and Devo because, but just in general, I could just see how that might be a thing, you know?
There's footage of them. That's the song they perform when they're on Saturday Night Live. Satisfaction.
Oh,
Devo.
wow, okay.
Yeah, so you can catch that
Oh,
live
I
on
gotta go
on.
look that up, yeah,
Yeah, yeah, and
actually.
it's just them kind of robotically,
Yeah.
moving.
Yeah, I
It's
remember
just
that
all.
video. I remember it must have been the video, I remember, yeah.
It's there's just a. I'm glad they represent a corner of music. We
Sure.
need that corner. We can't, there's so many kind of groups you can almost kind of put together and kind of, genres are horrible, but they just kind of stand alone, don't they?
They really do. I mean, now listen, I'm not an expert in, you know, punk or new wave. I'm not an expert in that stuff, but from, the things that I've been exposed to over the decades and what I know, yeah, I mean, they definitely are a singular vision and sound, I think,
Mm,
for sure,
mm.
you know?
Boy, watching this Patrick Watson guy and his YouTube, channel telling us how he writes music and
Oh, I didn't
man,
see any of that.
oh, can you imagine if these things were around with the Beatles and they just were off the
Oh,
cuff and
right.
taught us some of this stuff, for this song, we kind of did this. And I really, I didn't know this man at all. I mean, Here
Neither did
Comes the
I.
River is the song, and it's just a wonderful, it's just melodic. And this is your kind of song, Tom, right?
I had a feeling you were gonna say that for some reason. I guess maybe it is, even though I hate to admit it, but, the fact of the matter is I've sort of come to accept that I really do. I love a good melody. I love a good
Yeah.
lyric. And, as far as harmonically, unless I'm mistaken, there is like 3 chords in that song that just repeats loop
Is
over and
that
over again,
right?
which is to me, it's always impressive when a song can carry through like that. That's good songwriting because what's going on is, you know, in the arrangement, things are constantly entering and being taken out, which make it interesting and keep the thing moving along, and his vocal delivery, you know. So yeah, I mean that's cool. It's really cool. But the string arrangement for that song, the first time I heard it killed me. I was like, again,
Right.
very rarely do I have, but that was another one of those things where I got the chills. I'm like, that is perfect.
Wow.
It's perfect for that. I mean, it's
Wow.
just beautifully written, that string arrangement. It totally illustrates the song, and it's everything that you'd want it to be. It's really great. And the
And how were you
lyrics too.
introduced?
You know what? You want to hear the funny thing about that is, on my exercise bike, just got a yeah,
Sure.
Netflix on or whatever. So I was watching some spin-off of The Walking Dead. It was like with teenagers. I forget what it's called, A New Day or something like that. At any rate, not highly rated, but I got sucked in. I'm like, but in what at the end of one of the episodes, they had this sort of montage and they played this song, and I was like, who the hell is that? That's
Wow.
great. Never heard of the guy before either. He's great.
Yeah, so you heard it through through something else. Yeah, it's so he was born in LA. I guess he lives in
Oh,
Montreal
he
now.
was?
Yeah, in '79, he was born in Los Angeles and now, yeah, Montreal.
Oh, I
Yeah.
thought he was Canadian right from the get-go. Oh,
But
okay.
yeah, that's what it says here. A blend of cabaret, pop, classical music, and indie rock. But yeah, his YouTube channel, go check it
I
out. He sits
will.
there and he just talks about it. I almost got the impression that you knew him, like you met him, because I mean the way he's so kind of self-deprecating. I'm not really good at lyrics; doesn't come naturally. But here, I watched 3 or 4 of, like, when I say videos, I don't mean his music videos. I mean he's standing in front of all
Yeah.
his stuff, just talking about his process.
Oh, I have to watch that. Yeah, I would really
It's
be interested in that.
wonderful.
Yeah. So to
I
show
can't.
my appreciation for his music, I went and hit the download button on Apple Music. That was
You
my
never do that.
sacri that was my
You never do that.
sacrifice. That was my big sacrifice. Download and then listen to it 3 times or whatever. That's what I mean. It's like, freaking beautiful song,
Yeah.
so carefully crafted, and and it's like there's no skin in the game for any of us to actually get to the to there's no pay it back for all that work really, other than us listening, I guess. So
Yeah, the
I
wind it's good for you. The windows turned to fish bowls, the city to seas, the car was drowning underneath your feet, the children were swimming from the top of the trees, crowds of umbrellas were staring in misbelief. It's just kind of that's just not in me, Tom. I could never write anything like that. That's
Yeah,
wonderful.
it's beautiful. It really is. It's beautiful, and it's you know so much conjures so much.
Yeah.
There's a whole. It's weird. Like it almost because I mean, let's face it, the lyric is a little surreal. You know what I mean? The windows turn to fish bowls. There's almost
Yeah.
like I don't know, in my mind, sort of like an old fashioned animated, almost like that animation from the '70s or something. I can't explain it, but it conjures these weird vibes, in
Mm.
my mind. On top of the fact that it's just beautiful,
Yeah, it
the
is
message of
beautiful
the
stuff.
song ultimately, you know what I mean? And yeah.
Yeah. So when you heard "Back to the Way I Was" by Emily Bell, what'd you think?
So that one, I think it's a perfectly good song. Like I have nothing bad to say about it at all. I don't know that like I went and actually listened to some of her other stuff that I
Did you?
think yeah, just because I'd never heard of her before.
Yeah.
She's really good, you know what I mean? I don't really have much to say about it. I mean, it doesn't particularly strike me hard one way or the other. I dig the sounds, do you know what I mean? Like,
Mm.
I like the sound dig the sounds. I use dig all the time.
It's
I
alright.
don't know
I
why.
love it.
I'm not a hippie
Just
at
be
all,
yourself. Just be
but
yourself.
yes,
That's right.
dig. Yeah. But I like the sounds, again, being a guitar player, I like the guitar sounds a lot.
Yeah.
And the performances are all great. Everything's in the right place, you know what I mean? It's fine. I guess I just don't have a strong opinion one way or the other. I heard another tune that struck me a little bit more, but I can't remember what it is. But yeah, like how did you wind up being that song's 10 years old, which I
Yes.
didn't.
More. Yeah. Oh, 2013. You're right. Yeah. Friend of mine went to South by Southwest. Remember when that was popular there?
Oh, yeah, yeah, yeah.
Saw her perform and said, listen to this song. So there you
So
go.
so I might have when I was re-listening to it again today, I think I would listen on YouTube and I was reading comments and they were saying some people were saying saw her live. She was so again,
Yeah.
her live show, I guess, is so compelling. And that's great. I mean, that's really what the name of the game is. So I'm sure I could hear that kicking ass live.
Absolutely, yeah. That kind of drilling guitar, and
Yeah.
there's sort of like humming behind it. I can't separate these things, but it's great though.
Yeah.
Great
So
hook.
what about it did particularly strikes you that 10 years later you're still
Yeah,
thinking about it
still
or
listen.
whatever?
It came up into my Well, I have to mention this fact, by the way, and perhaps I'm shallow doing that, but she's a very attractive woman.
Yeah.
And that does play into it somewhat. So when my friend saw her, said, "Listen to it, watch the video," and then I put it in my rotation. And then whenever it came on, I stopped. I didn't do it. And I'd be playing golf, and I'd be saying, "Back to the way I was." It just can't
Yeah.
come to me. So it's just all that kind of culminated, and it kind of resurfaced in the last months or so. And I said this would be a kind of a perfect. It's what I'm listening to. So let's see what Tom thinks.
Oh, okay, I gotcha. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah,
Yeah, I mean,
yeah.
like, I thought it was good. I think there was she might have been a little bit ahead of the curve in that, but there was that sort of retro-y type of song thing that was going on. There's, what's her name? I think it was another Ellie King, maybe, who
Oh
did
yeah,
that tune, X's and O's.
X's and O's. Yeah.
That same universe of sound.
Interesting.
You know what I mean? So
Yeah.
there was definitely, a population of artists that were in that world, that kind of sound world, which I think it's cool. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's kind of interesting to hear, the take on. I wouldn't say it's some of the sounds are retro. The song
Mm.
itself, I guess I wouldn't call retro, but you know what I mean. There's something about it, but it's kind of interesting. Yeah,
Yeah, and she also came on a show that I listened to on XM Bennington. I've been listening to a long time, Ron Bennington, and she came on. She was a guest there, and she spoke a little bit. So it's like, again, it's all this kind of context that I have, Tom. And
yeah,
that's what you do. It's just like even in sports, once we kind of get to know the athletes, we tend to watch a
yes,
little bit more. Once we get to
yes.
know the artist and music, we tend to listen a little more. It's
It's
just
true because you build the empathy. Yeah,
yeah, you do, and you make a connection, and you just stick with it. Now, I didn't know this Jeff Beck song. Where you were.
yeah.
No, I'm sorry. Where were you?
Where were you? Yeah.
Yeah, where were you? And it just kind of boy, I mean, you should know the title before listening to it, by the way, because I listened to it the first time and I forgot, and then I listened to it again and saying, "Where were you?" And I hear that phrase
Oh, interesting.
in the music, and
Yeah.
Brian May said it was, I don't know if you heard his, of Queen, of course. He said it was the most beautiful bit of guitar music ever recorded.
That
Uh,
song?
yes,
Really?
yeah,
I did not know that.
yeah,
That's wild.
yeah, and that came out in '89.
So the sole reason I put it on is it's so funny that Brian May said that. Um, because for me, so here's the deal. Obviously, Jeff Beck recently died.
Yeah,
You know, as much as I mean, he was definitely an influence for me as a guitar player. I
of
don't own
course.
all his albums. I don't even own his most popular albums, but
Wow.
that's the way I am. I get like I'll glean a certain thing from somebody, and it could be really formative, like a
Hmm,
really important thing, but that doesn't mean that I'll own the whole catalog at all. But I love Jeff Beck. Okay. I did own that album, Guitar Shop, which is what that tune is from. And in 1989, I listened to the hell out of that album,
really?
a lot. And so when he died, I went back and I was like, I gotta go listen to the Guitar Shop again. That tune came on. I'm like, oh my god, I remember that. I remember I played that over and over again. It just entranced me at the time. And that's really the only and so it was sort of a bit of nostalgia for me. And it's so that's why I thought it was funny that it had any significance to anybody else, especially somebody like Brian May. But it's great. I mean, but it's Jeff Beck. It's honestly, I don't know that that guy ever played a bad note in his life. I mean, he was otherworldly, really.
And when you hear, excuse me, if anybody's listening, it's an instrumental. They're going to say, "Oh, come on, I'm not going to." It's just I can hear kind of like, where were you? I can feel like almost the jealousy and the anger and and then there's kind of happy moments, and it's just it kind of brings you in and out of it. Now, of course, we know Jeff Beck, right? He started right the Yardbirds. Well, he replaced Eric Clapton in the Yardbirds, right? And then of course the Jeff Beck group with Rod Stewart and Ronnie Wood, and then artists that I wasn't familiar with, like Bogert and Tim
Oh,
Bogert and
Tim
Carmen
Boger
Apes.
and yeah, Carmen App. I don't know how you pronounce his last name. I always think in
It's
my mind it's Appice,
Apathy, yeah,
but I could
maybe,
be wrong. I don't know.
yeah,
Or a piece.
a
I don't know.
piece.
That
Yeah.
seems I don't know.
Yeah.
But
And
yeah,
then, of
oh
course,
yeah.
incredible. I mean, his history. He's
Yeah.
royalty. He's
Yeah.
royalty. He's rock and roll royalty.
Yeah. And
And then to
really
play with
one
Stevie Wonder and David Bowie and Ian Hunter, right? It just goes on and on.
everybody. And honestly, one of the best guitar players of the 20th, 21st century. I mean, I don't think anybody would dispute that. Really,
Really.
truly, truly, truly a great, great guitar player. And people hear that and they think, well, is it about playing a million notes and all that stuff? He could do that, but
Right.
that's not what it's about. For me,
Mm,
anyways, the thing that made him so great for me is that when you watched him play, you could see that he just had a direct line from his fingers, from his soul head right to his fingers. There was no filtering. So, I might go out and play a gig or whatever, and I might be thinking a little bit about what I'm going to play.
right.
You know what I mean? But he just, he had his act so together that he didn't have a filter. He didn't have to filter anything. It just played, and that's really not an easy thing to do. So that was always the thing that blew my mind with him was just how that's the mastery. You know what I mean? It's not in the fast notes. It's in literally the right notes
Mm,
all the time and saying exactly what you want to say without having to filter it or plan it or whatever, like we're discussing now. Although
right.
if I had a filter, I probably would have edited already, but whatever. Which it goes to
Uh,
show you that's my problem, even with playing guitar. But
I see that. I noticed that with Prince, by the way. I just see him. It doesn't seem like there's like any thought in the way he can kind of move his head in a certain direction as to give notes or to the band what's happening next, and the way he's in complete control of his instrument and his surroundings. I haven't had the pleasure to to see Jeff Beck play or in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame twice with the Yardbirds and then as a solo artist in 2009. And you know every list that I always see always has him in top 5, top 10 of best guitarists, and it's amazing how I always with a Stratocaster, Tom.
he is at various times, like he's played a Les Paul early in the early
Uh,
70s. I think I've seen him play a Telly here and there, but
hmm.
Strat is really his thing because he used the tremolo bar so much as part
Uh,
of his expressive, tools. It really was, it became part of you can't divorce that thing, that
yeah.
the whammy bar from his sound at this point.
Wow.
It's really, really, really baked in.
And forgive me the ignorance of this, but some of the notes that he plays where he just barely touching the strings and it doesn't make the full sound, but he's conveying that message. Like, what is that called? Do you know what I mean?
Do you mean like I have a
It's
guitar
like
right now? Are
muted.
you talking
Yeah.
about like this, that type of thing?
Yes.
That's called a harmonic.
Ah.
So what you're doing, and without nerding out too much, but like there are essentially nodes on this guitar neck, right? Where I know that I can get okay. Long story short, this note, that's not just one pitch. There's actually a series of pitches that you can't readily hear that are going on. When we
Oh,
hit this harmonic, these harmonics, these are the notes that are actually baked into that one single note.
interesting.
So on the guitar neck,
We can't hear the guitar.
oh, you
I
can't
can't
hear them?
hear. I
Oh
can't hear the
shoot.
guitar. Yeah.
Uh-oh. No fun.
Okay. Yeah.
Sorry. So that was a waste. That was a waste of 30 seconds.
But I think I know
That's
what you meant.
so yeah. So there are harmonic notes that like rest on top of your primary note, and that's it. When you play the node on the neck, you get just the harmonic almost. So that's what he's doing. I think that's what you're talking about. I hope we didn't just waste. Well, you can
It's
just edit this
wonderful.
out.
It's wonderful though. It's wonderful the way he can kind of go in and out there. And do you think that did he plan every note on that before he played it?
Probably not. I don't think. I think obviously the main melody and stuff like that,
Right.
but you know, but I'm sure there are moments where he's just freely playing, off of the melody or whatever. As I remember it, I haven't listened to it in a couple weeks. It seems like it's pretty through composed, meaning most of it is probably just because it's mostly just melodic. the melodic content. I think there's little solo spots or whatever, and those are probably freely improvised or whatever. But with a guy like that, it can be hard to tell though, because that's what I mean. His mastery of the instrument, you know what I mean? It could sound like he could probably just play and play and play and play,
Hmm.
improvise, and it would sound like it was
Right.
composed or whatever,
I'm
because
going to go in this direction now, and the band behind him is good enough to know what to do, and
oh yeah,
right, he's only going to play with similar skilled professionals, and
oh yeah, oh yeah,
it's just the kind of mastery there is just it's wonderful and overwhelming.
oh yeah. Try being a guitar player.
Yeah, I know. Can you imagine?
And having to well, it's like that with all of music though. That's the thing.
Right.
It's like you're always looking up at towering giants that you then have to sort of somehow, I'll
Mm,
just take this little niche in the wall here while you got, you know what I mean? While you guys, honestly, you're kind of like, well, what's the point? Look at that.
right.
But, if you still have something to say, you can say there's a quote, was everything has already been said, but no one was listening, so it has to be said again. So, you know,
Yeah, I've heard that before. Oh, I've heard a variation is like, doesn't matter what they said. What did you hear?
okay, sure.
Similar,
Yeah,
right?
similar,
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah, yeah. Because it really doesn't. It just matters what you heard, right? I mean, that's all you're going to take away from it. So, what was it like when you heard "I Don't Know" by the Beastie Boys?
I like that tune. I like it. I've heard various things through friends of mine, you know what I mean? Like, so I know that they have sort of a varied output. But I like that song. I wasn't surprised by the stylistic turn, I guess is
You
what I'm
weren't.
saying. No,
Huh.
because I know that they play a little bit and sing a little bit, and so um, it sort of actually, it's funny, kind of in a vague way reminded me of. Do you know the singer Nico from the '60s?
Yes.
So it almost reminded me
Ah.
of her first album. I'm like, oh yeah, it's kind of similar vibe in a way. But I liked it, yeah, I mean, I don't
Yeah.
know, I mean, I have a stupid little nitpicky thing, I'm not even gonna bother saying it, I sound like an idiot, but so I'm literally not gonna say it, you're not gonna get it out of me because 'cause I'm not gonna critique the Beastie Boys on
Something with the musicianship or something with a lyric?
the lyric, but
Oh,
it's a
yeah.
stupid thing, and they're the Beastie Boys, they could do whatever they want.
They could do whatever they
I'm
want. Yeah.
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
just, my temperament, my sensibilities. I mean, I just can't help it. I'll hear something and I deconstruct it a little bit.
Sure, you could see it. Yeah. So this came
But
off Hello Nasty, 1998.
okay, so was that after or before Paul's Boutique or?
Paul's Secret's the second album. That was after License to
Oh,
Ill.
oh,
So,
really?
so that was 88, I want
I
to
did
say.
not realize that.
Yeah, that was 10 years later. This is Hello Nasty's 10 years later.
Wow.
Yeah,
Okay.
they went to LA and made Paul's Boutique. And yeah, and it didn't sell very well. People love it now as kind of a throwback, but back then they were expecting to do everything they could do after License to Ill, and it didn't sell very well. But it remains to be my favorite just as a whole album.
Yeah.
But yeah, I don't know. I mean, I get nostalgic when I hear it because, of course, Adam Yauch is no longer with us, and he was the
Right.
main writer and singer of the song. And it's, um, I was. Have you heard the song before?
No, I had
Yeah,
not heard it before.
it was on a show on Hulu, and I forget what it was. Lenny Kravitz's daughter played a record shop owner. Not Capitol Records, but they played the song often in the beginning or the end. And I said, I know that song. And then I went back and I said, oh, that's from Hello Nasty. That's Adam. Yeah, that's MCA. And I went back and I started putting it in my regular rotation. So, you know, what's pleasing to the eye, is the delusion of my sight is not what I find when I reach into the light. I've lost my mind. Uh, this kind of struggle there. And then, he ends up getting, I believe, throat cancer, and
Yeah.
he's not with us. So I get nostalgia. The Beast Boys, very large part of my life. I listened to a lot of them. The Paul's Boutique, I would Again, another album where it's very hard for me to listen to one song. I want to hear it with its surrounding songs.
Yeah,
Uh, Another album like that for me is Rio by Duran Duran, if we're making such a list. But
right.
but it's just, again, I have context with these, with all this music, Tom. So it means different things.
Yeah, no, no, no. Listen, I'm not like, I guess by my saying I like it, I'm not. I hope that doesn't mean that it comes across in any diminished way. I really like
Yeah.
the tune, you know what I mean? And I guess my point is like I'm not surprised because I've heard enough of their stuff where
Mm.
I've heard the range of what they can do, and I like what they do. You know what I mean? I'm like they were an interesting group because they weren't afraid to try all sorts of different things, and obviously wildly creative. You know, right? I totally admire that. You know,
Yeah.
yeah. I mean,
Fascinating band.
yeah, and I was, when if it was the '90s and I heard that, I probably would have that on some sort of rotation. But like I said, now I don't have the attention span for anything.
Mm.
Check out that album. What's the rest of that album like?
I'm sorry?
What's the rest of the album like?
Hello Nasty. Oh, really, really good. Really good. It's one of their, there's a couple, they did a whole instrumental album after that, I believe. Or was that right before it? I don't remember now, but Hello Nasty's really good. They just do a good job of, I remember being at a pool hall and them just playing the whole disc back then, right? The all the way through. And I had already been listening to it, and I don't really go to pool halls very much, but I just happened to be in a city and my friends wanted to do it. But I like it. It's a good thing to listen all the way through. They're just part of, everything I've so much part of what I used to listen to, that I just enjoy them. And they released a book where it kind of does their whole life. Apple
Yes.
TV has a documentary on them by them, where they kind of walk through everything and their kind of process, and you know um
So
just
is
two
that album
tunes.
is the rest of the album in
No,
that vein of that song?
no.
Okay, that's what I mean. That was sort of an outlier in
Yeah.
that album. Okay.
Yeah, very much so. He's very much Adam Yauch is a Buddhist, or Buddhist, and he would, a lot of skiing, a lot of snowboarding, and he would be away from the band doing these things and going to India and meditating, and very very much into that lifestyle. He was very did and he was very all the videos with the fisheye lenses and everything they did
Uh-huh.
was all him, was all
Oh, no
MCA. It was
kidding.
all him. Yeah. It was all Adam Yauch. Yeah. And very, very, very artistic. His father was another artist, by the way, if I remember correctly. And there's this great line. For one of the stories is fantastic on the Paul's Boutique album. There's a little clip that they play before a song where this guy comes on, and it's a message that when we had phone machines, Tom, remember that they're
Oh
dating
yeah.
ourselves. The message is like, this is Al from the band. So this is, you could fuck you, my man. He says something like that, and it's very angry. And the Beastie Boys had a 1-800 number that they bought a long time ago. It was on Paul's Boutique. The very first song had mentioned 1-800, and they kept it, and they just put an answer machine on it, and they just recorded everything.
Oh
And
wow.
this recording they loved so much, and there's so much anger there. They never found out who it was, and they just put it on there. And once you hear the story of it, it's wonderful.
Right.
My friends like George, like that know this song, love that line, and so just a fascinating band. Again, I think they have their own corner of music that we need.
Yeah. Yeah. I would agree with that, I think. Yeah, for sure.
You think about some of these bands that we mentioned, and it's like life would not be as good without these songs, Tom, without art. It just wouldn't be as good. I just
Yeah, I
don't
mean,
think
what are you
it raises
living
quality.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, not that we're all living for music or movies or whatever, but I mean, it's so important to I mean, in ways that we probably can't even
Mm,
describe, but just to provide context to our own lives and the lives of other people to create empathy. You know what I mean? I've thought, I
yeah.
don't know. In the past, I've thought about it. Like, really, what's the power of art or of a
Right.
song or of music? And I used to think, it's probably. not. And then I've been proven wrong a million times, you know. So I do think I've come around to the idea that I do think it's really important.
Very important. I remember this song because I was doing this, and it was a time in my life when this happened, and be it positive or negative. And I'll go back to you too. And I hate to be a simp, but I just a big fan of all that music. If we didn't have it in our life, I just wasn't one the one movie where the Beatles didn't exist, but the one guy knew
Oh
that
yeah, I
they.
didn't see it, but I know what you're talking about. Yeah.
It's just very odd. So all these
Yeah.
people, yesterday.
It
I don't
might be
remember.
that, yeah.
Yeah, yeah. It's just the idea that that music wasn't there, and then I don't know. I don't know. I'm a dreamer, maybe, but I truly believe that there's certain poems, there's certain movies, like you said, there's certain songs that just relate to me, and I need them. Tom, thanks so much for you. I love this, man.
Oh no,
I
it was
love
fun.
talking about music. I love getting exposed to stuff I'm not familiar with. I love sharing some with others and sharing some of the songs I love. I Thanks so much for your time today, man. We spent a little longer than we did, but I really enjoyed this, man.
Oh, my pleasure as always, my friend. No, it was the pleasure was mine. It was fun. It was fun to actually you got me listening to things that I normally wouldn't seek out either, so it was mutually beneficial.
Yeah, as you did I. How can we get in touch with you? Anybody listening?
You know what? You can go to my website, which is probably a nice
Kind of
uh
start.
start.
Yeah.
Yeah, so it's tomizzomusic.com, and it's, TOMIZZO, all lowercase, .com. And so there I've got actually audio up of, various things, and links to audio of various things, and information on I teach, so
Yeah.
songwriting, I teach guitar and everything in between. So there's links for that too.
Yeah, Instagram, you got great videos of little kind of lessons you've learned or you learned and you want
I've
to
done.
teach.
You're right.
It's great. It's absolutely great. Tom Izzo with two Z's. Tom, thanks so much for your time, my friend. You be well.
Thank you.
Thank you for listening and or viewing Joey Pin's Discipline Conversations. Please share this episode with one or two of your friends who you think may benefit from the episode. Our website, www.joeypins.com. There you'll find lots of resources and you could join our mailing list. Please follow us on all our social media, Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook. Podcast information, the video version of our podcast is on YouTube. Please subscribe. Audio is on all major podcasting platforms. Please follow them. And if you like it, please consider giving 5-star rating. Would really appreciate that. Would you like to financially support the podcast? You can go to our Patreon site. Consider $5, $10, or $20 a month. There's all kind of plans that we have there. There's like a one-time payment. What is this podcast episode worth to you? $25, $50, $100, $500, $1,000, $5,000. You be the judge. You can go to our PayPal account to do that as well. Thank you again for listening or watching Joey Pin's Discipline Conversations.